Brad, a lot of people argue today is harder than it was 10 or 15 years ago. I'm curious what you think. They say that, AI, it's a lot harder, especially for venture, to take advantage of that, given that the existing companies could do it as well. And so there's a lot of debates about what the returns the next 10 years are going to be versus the last 10 years. Like, what are the big trends today, and how are you seeing it?
It's not surprising that those arguments are reemerging right after 2022.
Yes.
Okay. Those same arguments existed in 2001 after that correction, and existed in 2009 after that correction. And ironically, as investors and thinkers, we tend to be overly influenced by the most recent events. So I actually think this is the best of time, the intersection when prices have corrected, but you're early in a super cycle.
Yep.
I think AI, or I like to talk about augmented intelligence, will be more important to humanity than the first three super cycles I've lived through, which are internet, mobile, and cloud. I think it'll be bigger. And so I don't buy that thesis. Of course, as Bill Gurley, our friend here in town, likes to say, venture capital is cyclical, right? We have not suspended the laws of gravity. Interest rates matter, right? And so that overlay matters, but none of that changes the never-ending waves of innovation that we drive in this country. And when you can get early in one of these super cycles, those tailwinds provide extraordinary opportunities for return.
So we're seeing a lot of $100 million, $200 million AI rounds, some really hot competitive stuff going on in the Valley. Is that what's going to be that makes the money, or how do you play AI?
Well, oftentimes, as you and I, again, have seen, is being early can be tantamount to being wrong. Okay, so think about 1998. Every venture capital firm in Silicon Valley realizes the internet's going to be big, actually realizes that search, organizing the world's information, is going to be important. And the mad scramble was on. Everybody wanted a search logo. Lycos, AltaVista, Ask Jeeves, InfoSeek, go through the list.
Again, those logos maybe wasn't as good of an idea as it seemed at the time.
And here we are. You could have waited until 2004, Google's IPO. You would have captured 90% of the upside ever created by search, and you would have avoided all of those zeros. Remember, I talked about CMGI, started by David Weatherall. That company in 2000, he gave the graduation speech at Harvard Business School. He was on the cover of Time magazine. He bought the naming rights for Foxborough Stadium in Boston, renamed it CMGI Stadium, and was bankrupt a few years later.
I've never even heard of him. I was 18 years old at the time.
Because he beat out Barry Diller in buying Lycos.
That's funny.
Had Barry bought Lycos, it may have ended him as well.
Wow.
So I think being early can be wrong. That doesn't mean that the fundamental thesis was incorrect. In fact, it was right. Internet was going to be bigger than we all thought. Search was going to be bigger than we all thought. But you didn't have to be there and pay those high prices. I think we saw this in early mobile. Danger, Sidekick, BlackBerry, there were a lot, Palm, there are a lot of great mobile efforts before you really had the emergence of the super cycle. Same in the cloud. And so we're early in AI. We're seeing really interesting stuff in the tooling layer, where investors in the public market, and NVIDIA's Silicon Layer has obviously been ignited because of this. We're going to launch more, we're going to deploy more compute in 2024 than in all previous years combined.
Yeah, the data infrastructure and compute stuff does seem to be a good play, obviously, the last few years. That's an amazing amount of money being spent there.
Right. And so, the condition required to participate in AI is you have to aggregate all of your data, and you have to set it free and get it frictionless into the cloud. So we're seeing reacceleration in terms of that entire stack. But if this is as big as we all think it will be, this will play out like the internet did
there's
over decades, not months.
Let me run my favorite idea by you I'm working on right now. We're not talking about too much in public, but I think there's a lot of services businesses in our country where, I'll give you one example, healthcare billing, $250 billion a year is spent on people throw tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of bodies, right, at these crazy billing situations. And it seems to us, we have some really talented ex-Palantir guys working on it. We've been looking at, things like this area. It seems like you can actually make it like 2 or 3 or 4 times as productive. That means you have businesses that are worth billions of dollars, where if you fix them, the margins go from 15% to 50, 60, 70%. Some of this stuff looks pretty interesting to us that could actually happen in the next few years. Are you guys thinking about services businesses with AI or all that stuff?
Absolutely. I mean, and by the way, I remember talking to you early in your journey at Palantir, and you guys were way ahead of your time. And Palantir is in many ways just coming into its own, right, in terms of the significant transformations that it can have on businesses leveraging AI. And so I think that, I was in Omaha recently having dinner, and you look at the Berkshire portfolio, its entire portfolio is already being transformed with AI. This is not something that's going to be, discreetly preserved in the tech community, right? This is going to remake how United Airlines interacts with customers. It's going to remake how, furniture manufacturers finish their goods in the U.S. So I think this is probably the single most important step function we've seen in productivity in this country since the internet. So, and I can give you a couple examples on that.
When do you think we actually see the productivity statistics? It's always been somewhat surprising to me that we do all this stuff in the tech world. Productivity hasn't gone up. Are we finally going to see productivity shooting up in the late 2020s?
It's hard for me to think about the performance improvements that we're hearing about without seeing that flow through to productivity gains. Yeah. So a couple statistics. Copilot, which has 30,000 beta customers at Microsoft, I think is the fastest growing product in the history of Microsoft. Most companies are reporting, I think Amazon Code Whisperer, so this is a code generation Copilot, is reporting that they've seen 56% increase in engineering productivity as a result of using Code Whisperer.
That's awesome.
Okay. You look at companies like Meta that have compounded engineering headcount at well over 20% a year for the trailing 5 years, now saying we can hold engineering headcount flat to 1% to 2% as we look forward over the next few years. So I think it first manifests itself, Joe, that you just do more with the same people.
Yep.
The next phase is call centers and things like this, where you can actually get higher net promoter scores with far fewer people.
Yep.
And so I think we're early in this playing out. 2023 was the year of testing. They tested it in the call center. They tested it in the sales with the sales teams. They tested it with their engineers. 2024 is going to be the year of deployments. We're going to start seeing those gains. You will not see mass layoffs. And then 2025 and beyond, I think you're really going to see those transformations kick in. I'll give you one other example. I heard this recently. ByteDance, where we're investors, has about 40,000 content moderators. Okay, these are folks who are flagging, content that
making sure it's not too pro-US or anti-China. Just kidding.
Well played, you and JCal, my rivals on this. But flagging content. They suspect that they'll see a 90% reduction in content moderators over the course of the next year. Wow. Because that work can be more efficiently and better done by AI. I think this will play out. So think of that. One product, one company, 35,000 heads replaced. I think this is going to be the most disruptive moment in labor markets in the history of modern capitalism over the course of the next 5 years.